Yeah, this video, I really am not really trying to talk about much of the topic too much here. It's more so everything that he's saying in here that's very much not in tune with a lot of black people, and I just want to address it.
An African dating show. I want everybody to go subscribe, hit the bell, the first comment at the top. I am literally going across Africa, me and my team, hooking up black people all over the world, hooking you brothers up with women. So check us out, guys. We got some really good episodes over there. Hope to see you. Over the last 6 to 7 years, black women in America have been citing their differences on social media about the lack of romantic and personal interest that black men take in them, insofar as marriage and long-term relationships. And of course, there is a popular movement online, which is called divesting from the black community or divesting from black men. And you also hear other expressions such as exploring their options. And because of that, black women are looking to expand their range in dating opportunities.
The problem with this whole idea is the idea that we start off with an interest in black men. This is weird to me because it's like, personally for me, I never had an interest in black men. It's not a divergent. Divestment is like diverging from something you were originally connected to, right? Well, I was never connected to black men. Was never raised that way. I don't think my mother was raised to think she was connected to black men. Now, the generation before her probably was, only because they were raised in segregation times, racism was rampant, anti-miscegenation laws were put in place and practiced, for those reasons. So because of racist white people, I never thought that was because of black people. All that was because of white people. But then there's some dumb black people out there that want to implement the racist laws on themselves, even as the laws have been lifted against them. It's weird. It's like gay. I don't know. It's just stupid.
There was this young lady here who was a beautiful dark-skinned young woman, and she said that, she said this about black men. Y'all gonna cancel me, but today marks the day that I will be dating outside of my race. And I know what you're about to say. Aren't you pro-black? I am. But as a dark-skinned black woman, the most hate I get is from my own men. And me restricting myself to only dating black men is giving me little to no options. Because there's only like a small group of black men who actually like women like me. And trust me, I've been trying to educate black men about colorism, futurism, texturism my whole damn life. I do it on my platform every day. But a lot of them choose to stay dense and ignorant. And I'm sorry, but you're not about to ask me to wait for these men to stop being colorist. I cannot wait any longer for these men to stop the self-hatred.
I get so annoyed by these types. These types are so weird to me. So you're gonna use other races of men because your men hate themselves? This seems like an in-house problem. Quit making it somebody else's problem. It's nobody else's problem. It's not light-skinned people's problem that dark-skinned people don't like each other. It's not white people's fault. It's not Asian people's fault. It's not the aliens in the world outside of this planet's fault, okay? If there are aliens. It's no one's fault that dark-skinned people don't like each other besides dark-skinned people. So quit trying to say, I'm gonna go to somebody else and say that they need to like me, they need to prefer me because my own men or my own women don't prefer me. This is what both of you do, it seems to me, when it comes to the whole dark and light skin colorism thing. And then for those reasons, I'm gonna go to another race. Well, you don't even like that race. By this person's standard, they're not saying that they like other races of men. They're saying that they're going to use other races of men because they are basically, in their words, throwaway for dark-skinned men, period. Because dark-skinned men don't want them, because dark-skinned men don't want themselves. Like I said, this is an in-house problem. You guys need to figure it out. Don't try and make that someone else's burden. I get tired of that and annoyed by that because I'm a lighter-skinned black person. And these issues are generally, most often, put on lighter-skinned black people. We oftentimes are the scapegoats of these situations, period. Reason why is because what happened originally was dark-skinned black people would not like each other or whatever, and then they would use light-skinned people and lighter-skinned people to circumvent being with dark-skinned people, basically. And then they would basically gaslight, threaten, and intimidate lighter-skinned people into liking them, basically. Because what they would say is, you're wrong for not liking them and all this nonsense, and that you somehow have a self-hatred towards a skin tone you never even had. Simply because they want access to you, and because they feel like they're having a hard time liking each other, so they try to include somebody else in on this situation. That's why I'm saying she's trying to make it someone else's issue, because that's what they'll try and do to white people. Try and gaslight them, intimidate them, and all that nonsense. Same thing. If they're given the chance to do that, that's what they would do to white people. See, with light-skinned black people and mixed people, dark-skinned black people have always owned lighter-skinned people's asses. Let's just be real. They have. They've always owned them, controlled them, ruled them. And the sad thing is, lighter-skinned black people would let them because they just felt like they didn't really belong anywhere, and they felt like they were kind of like the real black people, basically. So they would just let them run right over them and control them. Of course, white people don't have that dynamic, but I'm saying this is just an example of how if you let dark-skinned people just run them up, they will just basically gaslight you and everything and tell you your image is not what you need to want, desire, like, or have any interest in, and you should only have eyes for them because they're having some problem within their own complexions. They don't like, they're dark-skinned men. The dark-skinned men don't want themselves. They don't want their own women, and so then they come and try and make it someone else's issue. That's what I don't like about women like this. Fix your problems. Don't make other people who don't have this problem with dark skin, because we don't have dark skin, that a part of our issue. Colorism and you saying you're struggling with dark skin, which is honestly self-inflicted, is your problem. Anyway, continue.
Go where I'm wanted. I'm tired of sitting in places where I'm not wanted and trying to convince the people that I should be desired. I'm sorry, but I'm done with that. So from this day forward, Shakira will be looking outside of her race when it comes to dating. Not saying I'm not going to date black men. I definitely will. But to expand my options, yes, I will be dating outside of my race. Unapologetically. Thank you very much. As you can see there, she thinks that because of her skin complexion, black men just don't take her serious. However, you have another lady who feels equally as, as interested in the topic, that black women could be wasting their time with black men. And obviously, you might want to go ahead and expand your options. We'll play that. There's no way I could have been thinking about that shit for the past 2 days. And I just told myself, honestly, I'm not going to talk about black men anymore. I'm not going to point out the ways in which they tend to go wrong. I don't want to give black women any more advice on how to avoid particular kind of black men. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to encourage women to find love, and I feel like the things a lot of women have to be specific in pointing out, be careful when you date black men, simply because this is something that happens perpetually and so pervasively amongst black men, especially colorism. And guys, I'm a dark-skinned black girl. What's been coming up a lot for me has been triggering me, and what's been coming up a lot that has been having me dizzy lately.
And this is the reason why, like, the whole divested Twitter and places like that get mad at lighter-skinned black women in general when we say that we are, not into black men, because in their mindset they see it as if they had our phenotype, they would never consider being with another race, basically because they feel like we get enough attention from black men. And I'll say, for me personally, I do get a lot of attention from black men. But that doesn't mean that just because black men give you attention, you must entertain them. It doesn't mean that you have to date them just because they gave you attention. If you want them, then you give them attention. If you don't give them attention. This is the whole just pearly things mentality. Like, she literally was saying, date people who want to date you rather than dating people who you actually want. And this is the thing about these type of divested people. They don't really understand that. They understand rejection, not being appreciated by the man that they actually wanted, and going with another man and using that man to fulfill the fact that the other man rejected them. And it's uncomfortable, one, to try and make that an image for a lot of women like myself who are like, well, that's definitely not my experience at all in any regard. I don't suffer from dark skin because I don't have dark skin. I've never had the issue of rejection. Definitely not with a black man, because I've never tried to do anything with a black man. I've never even had a sexual thought about a black man. Quite honestly, I could be hooked up to a lie detector test and asked, have I ever had a sexual thought about a dark-skinned black man? I would say never, and it would be, it would work out pretty well, because I've never, ever had a thought like that. To me, when I look at black men, dark-skinned black men, there are many times when I confuse them for black females. So I don't see them as potential partners, It has to do with features for me. I don't register their features as masculine, I register them as feminine. Now, other people register them as masculine, and it works out for them. That works out pretty well for them, but it's just not my preference or something I would find attractive. Anyway, continue.
And what's been weighing heavy on my heart lately is the realization that I only know about love when it comes to men, not because of black men. Everything I know about love and what it means to be treated well as a woman was because of someone that was non-black. Yes, my father did the best that he could.
In my experience, honestly, that's not the truth for me. I would say black men have always treated me pretty nicely. Especially when it comes to, like, protection and stuff like that. I always try to come to my defense and stuff. Particularly dark-skinned black men. In quite a few different scenarios. So, I don't know, I don't, but it's not, when we talk about romantic relationships, I can't say I, know anything about that, because I've never dated black men. But then, thinking of my own personal relationships, I've never really had an intense feeling for anyone like that. I've always described my emotional attraction to people as very hidden. I don't really search for it, really, honestly. I always figure It'll come or it won't come. That's all I'm like. Somebody will be emotionally compatible with me or they won't be. But as far as I feel with men, it's just kind of like the men that I've been involved with, generally it's just like, if they don't bother me too much, I'm okay with them, kind of like thing. You know what I mean? Like, some men, they're too emotional, they're too romanticized, they're too stuck in, this is how everything is supposed to be, you're supposed to act this way and that and such, and things of that nature, and I'm just like, I'm not following any script here, so, I mean, like, if you expect someone to follow a script, I'm going unscripted, you might want to move along, kind of situation. So, there's several different things that could be a mismatch for me. Basically, that it's like, for me, many of the time, am very specific in who I'm attracted to physically, but emotionally, it's just kind of like nothing in particular kind of like situation. So I can't say I've ever felt anything like love towards a man of any race, for that matter, or any man that I've dated, for that matter. But yeah, continue.
But even with seeing how he treats women, conservative Jamaicans, is this misogynistic patriarchal society. And it really impacts Black men and spills over into how they treat their women and shows how they don't value them, really. And the only time I ever get to be treated normally is with someone that's not Black. So there we have it. We have pretty much the case undergirded in the...
Yeah, that's not how I feel. I feel like Black men do treat me normally. Sometimes Black men seem to treat me like better than other women, honestly. Better than their dark-skinned women, of course, yeah, for sure. Because I'm not dark-skinned, I'm a lighter-skinned woman. And I'm not just lighter-skinned. Black men will look at me sometimes and they will either ask, what are you mixed with, or what are you? As in, they're not quite sure if I have black in me. It depends on how I'm dressed up and all that stuff. So, I mean, like, they kind of treat me, I think, better than a lot of Black women. But I don't really care that they treat me better, because they could treat me like I'm Bill Gates' daughter for all I care. But I don't want them. So what does it matter what they treat me like? You get what I'm saying? If you don't have physical attraction to a man, or a woman, there is no point in trying to be with that person in a sexual sense. There is no sexual attraction. You get what I'm saying? Continue.
Premise of why Black women are interested in going to another community or expanding their options. In other words, they're just not getting what they want here. But now, here's what Kevin Samuels used to always talk.
For me, that's not what it is, though. For me, I could definitely get what you're saying, like commitment or interest from Black men. I definitely get a lot of interest from Black men. I've always had to turn down a lot of Black men. And I personally just don't have much attraction to them. I don't see them as male like that. Like, in a sexual sense. Male as in, they can potentially hurt me. Yes. And this isn't to say that Black men are violent. I'm saying men in general, have a potential to hurt you, regardless of race. And I'm saying that for Black men, they obviously, I'm aware that they're male and that they have strength and the ability to hurt me just like any other male. You get what I'm saying? But not in the sense of sexual function, basically. I don't see black men as sexual beings for my own consumption. So it's not about what I'm getting from black men, no. It's about what I want. And that's just happening to not be a black man. Specifically because I'm not physically attracted to them. Same with Asian men. You know, people don't really have a fit that some black women are not attracted to Asian men. But then they have a fit over a black woman not wanting a black man. And some people try and claim it's self-hate. And I always wonder about this. So you mean to tell me that black women are self-hating a black penis that they never will have because we're women? You get what I'm saying? We can't self-hate body parts that we don't have personally. Black men have black penises. Black women do not have black penises. So we can't self-hate black men because we're not men. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, continue.
About, and even the late great David Carroll. What was that? Is that a lot of times women in the black community understand what they want, but the other side, have we heard what the other side has to say? You may want a man making $200,000 a year, but it may be hard to get if that particular guy has standards that you just cannot meet. And here's where...
No, but I mean, I don't understand why they always assume every woman is a gold digger. For me personally, I don't care about money. Even though there are plenty of men who had money and were interested in me, and I had no interest in them at all. In any regard. Like nothing. Like nothing at all. And they would specifically, some of these men were black. And, of course, I have no interest in black men. And they had a lot of money. And for me, it was just like, well, that meant nothing to me. Money means nothing to me. When I would hear they have a lot of money, to me, it's just like, okay, good for them. They can buy some different things, I was thinking, like just different accessories or whatever for themselves. Like they can go to a fancy restaurant for themselves. They can, buy themselves a nice suit. They can buy a nice car. Cool. They must live a cool life. I want to see, what do they do for a living? Maybe I should try and invest in whatever they're doing. Things of that nature. That's what I think of. I don't really specifically think when a man has a lot of money, regardless of if he's black or white for that matter, that I want to be with him and sleep with him so I can get some of his money. That to me is weird. I mean, I never thought of sex would equate to getting money because, boy, I was taught was it, that's kind of connected to prostitution. So I never really look at it that way. I mean, I know when someone gets married, of course, your assets get combined, basically. But still, I don't know. It's just the way people are saying, like, you're looking for someone who has a lot of money. It almost seems like you're being strategic and trying to just basically make your transaction of, intimacy come out to be some kind of currency. And that's something I'm just not comfortable with.
Controversy comes in it.
You're the guy with the gun, the person who would do anything to protect the ones you love. But did you know you could go to jail for simply doing the right thing to keep your family safe?
Sorry about the commercial.
Don't end up behind bars because you did.
Right? You have a guy on TikTok. The name is the Older Millennial. Now, he has had, I think, a few different channels on TikTok. This is it's pretty much interesting. He has over 300,000 people on this particular page. And I want to play what he had to say about black women and femininity and then we're going to come right back.
Society has this really weird obsession with stripping the femininity away from Black women.
All right, look, I'm sure this is going to get me into trouble, but I want to hear everybody's opinion on this. And please understand, I realize I'm making this observation as a white dude. That's why I want to hear everybody else's opinion. So she says that society is stripping away the femininity of Black women. However, throughout my life, I've met very few feminine Black women. Like, seriously, when I think about all the women I've encountered in my life, and I think specifically about the Black ones, I can honestly say that there's only been 1 or 2 instances where they've been feminine. The vast majority of Black women I've encountered have been brusque and aggressive. And even though a ton of them have been absolutely fucking gorgeous, they were significantly more masculine than they were feminine. In the way they acted, not the way they looked. So my question is, do you think it's society doing it? Or is it just the behaviors of Black women in society today?
So shout out to the older millennial. Now, of course,
To me, I think that with situations like that, I think most Black women are more masculine, but I also wanted to point out with this person, they to me seem like they come from a certain type of subculture of a type of person. You know, I wouldn't say, some people would try and assert that he's a different kind of white person. I don't try to see it that way. To me, I think different people are different ways regardless of their color. So some Black and white people come from a certain subculture, and other people come from a different subculture that are Black and white. Americans, separately, of course. The reason I'm pointing this out is because I'm pointing it out to show that the type of subculture he comes from, it appears, would be the type that would have more masculine women, basically. Masculine Black women especially. Because a lot of Black women think a certain way that they act, they're supposed to act as Black women in that specific subculture, like that hip-hop subculture. He kind of seems like he comes from that. Many of those women are more masculine. Now, not just them, though. Black women sometimes do seem a little bit more masculine to me. But I don't even know if he would pick up on the other type of Black women who still do seem more masculine, but they are from a different type of subculture, basically. I think sometimes people associate certain mannerisms with masculinity, and then sometimes if you come from a different subculture while being masculine but having different mannerism, people will think you're feminine. Like, I've seen people who would think I'm feminine because I have different mannerism, even though I'm not. By behavior and by thought process, I'm not at all feminine. I'm more masculine, much more masculine. But I think that maybe it has to do with how someone is raised. Sometimes when someone is raised by a masculine woman, then they will be a masculine woman. You know, but you can see this in any race for that matter. And I would say it just depends on the type of culture you come from, because Ethiopian and East African women seem a lot more feminine than Black American or white American women in manners. So obviously it's not specific to race, that makes your behavior different. It's got to do with the culture you come from. Continue, though.
He is a Caucasian man, all right? I don't necessarily feel like he's racist or anything. I'm going to tell you why, because it's an observation. Now, obviously, he probably doesn't deal with as many black women as, let's say, me, who deals with nothing but black women, or some of you black men out there. But pretty much the same thing that he's saying is what a lot of people are saying, especially in the black world. A lot of black men are saying, hey, listen, unfortunately, black women are very attractive. You know, we're finding that out, and that's what some black men are saying. But it's not really how they look. I mean, obviously, you're going to have some of the brothers going to have a problem with.
If you're not making $158,000 per year, but you'd like to, I strongly encourage you to
with, you know, maybe some of the bonnets or how some women are looking or shaped or whatever. That could happen in any culture or race, but the femininity is not there. So if he feels like that as a white man, how do other white men feel? I know this is not statistically significant because it's one person, but I'm saying that to say this. It's important. What do white men feel about the interactions that they have with black women, especially if black women are looking?
That is not a white man. Why are you saying that's a white man? That white man that you're trying to say a white man is darker than the supposed black woman. How is he a white man again? This is like a Hispanic man. I'd say he's Hispanic, right? He's not white. He'd be closer to a black man at that. But yeah, you're just being a little weird here. Anyway, continue.
To date white men, especially if this white man is successful, and we need to talk about that. A lot of times, black women want to go and start dating white men, not realizing that white men are the number one sought after group of men on planet Earth. Yes, there are more white men than anybody in the country because obviously there are more in population. But you don't understand that just like any successful man, white, black, or otherwise, that guy is most likely going to have his pick.
No, this is weird because why did you make the assumption that black women weren't successful too? I mean, to me, if you're saying that someone is looking to date someone who is a class higher than them, of course that's going to be a problem, but this is quite obvious that people of white and black races have belong to the same classes throughout the different class ranges. So you can't say that black women wouldn't be successful too. So, yeah, I kind of find this weird, you know. I think that race doesn't matter, but more class does matter, but you are so racially obsessed that you can't see that race is not entwined with class. Anyway, continue.
And this is what a lot of people don't understand about decent men, right? All right, if we're talking about lower class white men, that might be something different. If we're talking about, you know, white men who are...
Yes, but you have to understand people who are lower class would get with other people who are lower class usually. Usually when people get together, they're of the same class. When they're of different classes, that is the challenge. But that's a challenge overall. Like I said, race isn't really a part of that. Anyway, continue. I think more so you're stuck in the idea that black people are like lower class, poor ghetto people just because you are. But that's not the case. And to think that white people are rich, it's just odd, you know. Especially when the majority of poor people are white, not black. Anyway, not to knock at white people, by the way. It's just to state true facts here.
Are in poverty, But if we're talking about white men who are highly
He looks
educated,
funny.
professional, if you think that white men in general are going to want to put up with some of the things that black men are complaining about, they're going to have less invested in the culture. Black men are more willing to put up with those things because we're more tied to the community. We would understand certain issues that black women face. And similar, they would understand more issues that we face. And we are the same people, and that does matter. Being from the same community really matters.
That's what's weird about you. And this is the part I wanted to address. You talking about the same community. To me, I find this weird because it's like, to me, the way I see it with Americans is black Americans and white Americans come from the same community. There isn't a specific community that black Americans come from that's separate from white Americans. This is why, to me, it's not like as difficult as you are trying to present it with black Americans and white Americans interracially marrying and so forth, because it's like you guys don't realize that the two are very similar. Same culture, same community, same nation, same language. We have a lot in common, so it's very hard to distinguish outside of looking at black and white people. You can't tell by behavior what is the difference, basically. Well, besides, for example, having certain attributes, but I'm saying by your actual character as a person, that isn't defined by your color.
I know a lot of people don't think that, but it does. That's why we like the sorts of foods that we eat. We like the sort of slangs that we talk in certain communities. We dress a certain way. Depending on what coast we live in, we love certain type of rap music. I mean, it's different if you're...
See, this is what I mean. And this is what you actually, when you talk about this is exactly how, for me, I would never consider black men because of these stereotypes. Not because I think that that's how black people are defined, but I think that a large chunk of black men end up in one of these categories, and in one of these categories I cannot relate. So I'm not talking about the dark-skinned black men. I mean, I'm not attracted to dark-skinned black men, no matter how they act. It's kind of a done deal there. But when it comes to light-skinned black men, many of the time I feel like, well, they'll be a problem in one way or another because maybe they're a southern black and they eat certain food that I don't eat, basically. For me, it's annoying when people say black people eat a certain food because, to me, from my experience, I feel like the cuisine I'm used to is a common cuisine that Americans are used to, whether we're white or black. We eat the same food. So people who think that they eat a different food than the mainstream American type of cuisine are putting themselves basically away from our mainstream culture and kind of alienating themselves and isolating themselves. So for people like me who are not familiar with the food that you eat, it's like I can't relate to someone like that. Okay, if a man is looking for a woman to cook him those types of foods, I hardly even know what the names of the foods you eat are, let alone how to cook them, how they taste, what's in them. You know what I mean? As far as a potential partner, it would be troublesome to have someone that you're just describing in that regard. Then the slang, if you really were having certain types of slang and ebonics, oh no, I could never do that. Like, I dated a guy once who was from a country outside of America. I hate admitting what country that is because it's kind of a hated country to some people, basically. But anyway, he basically was a foreign man from a different country, and he had an accent, and it annoyed me. He was a nice guy, but I didn't like the accent. To me, when someone has some kind of slang or some kind of difference in how they talk, it's annoying to me. It's for me, I don't do well with accents. I don't do well with people who don't talk like I do, basically. At least similarly enough. To me, it's a speech impediment. So, yeah, when you say about slang, that's not really something. Then when you talk about clothing, that's just odd. I never heard anything about black people dressing differently than white people. I don't know how you guys dress differently, but it would be nice if someone could explain what that means. But yeah, I'm getting the idea that I probably wouldn't feel very comfortable with that either, because that would just seem odd. And then the last thing you were talking about, rap, assuming that black people like rap music, that's just odd. For me, I've never liked rap music. I hate, this is the thing. This totally wraps up everything for me. When people really think about it, black people who stereotype black people are my least favorite, okay? Because I would never want to date a man who's just stereotyping me because I'm black. And that is regardless of what race he is. If he's stereotyping me because I'm black, he doesn't know me. And if he doesn't know me, then he basically is just making assumptions about me for no warranted reason, basically. And so I don't get why I would appreciate that. This is actually a main thing where many black men who fit the category you're talking about would not understand me or seem to really get to know me in the right way, because they would have all these weird assumptions about me that weren't true. So I'd have to work through all those assumptions. You get what I'm saying? So aside from the whole thing with dark-skinned black men not being attractive physically, which is the majority of black men, even for the few that are light-skinned, and look like other races, if they have your mindset, that would be a problem too, because now they don't understand me, basically. I'm having to work through so many stereotypes that for me, it's not worth it. Especially for men who aren't of my culture and they're very different from me. You know what I mean? Because they're not willing to understand my difference, to work through that difference, because they're still thinking of the stereotype, of which I don't have any I don't have enough knowledge on what you're even talking about in many circumstances, like food, like, for example, clothing. And slang, I get what you're saying with slang, but, I mean, when people talk like that, it's very... interesting to me. And it's weird if they expect me to talk like that too, personally. Anyway, continue.
From the Bay, if you're from Sacramento, if you're from LA, if you're from New York City, you're going to be very influenced by your local community and dialects and the way you do things. And obviously, people that live around you, you're going to feel more comfortable, even if you might not like them all the time. But now,
yes, but if you understand that in most of America, those in your area and those you've grown up around and mostly seen are white American people because they're the majority in our country. So what we're used to seeing is white American people. This is why most black Americans are attracted to white American people. And it's sad that people try and tell black American people to deny their own interests when these are the people that are within their own culture and within their own community, basically, that are just a different color. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, continue.
what about a guy who is not black? He's not going to have that same energy for a particular person that's not going to live up to his standards. And typically, when you're going to date somebody from another community, you need to be able to beat out people in their own community if they're going to choose you. For an example, I've been living in Poland, for off and on for 6 or 7 years, right? I noticed that if you're going to date a Polish woman, and I've never done so, but for people that I know, you're going to have to add more value as a foreigner than a Polish man. In similar fashion, if you're going to come and date a woman in Africa, typically you're going to have to, and listen to what I'm about to say, you're going to have more to offer than somebody here in Uganda, the family, or in Kenya, or in South Africa. They're going to expect that you do more. So in a similar fashion, if he's a white man that has some level of success, if you're a black woman, they're going to expect you to do more, to be better than the average white woman, not to basically say,
yeah, see, I don't get it. Why are you comparing people from another country with people who are of the same national background? Black Americans and white Americans are Americans, sweetie. They're of the same culture. A Polish person is very different culturally to a black American, but a black American and a white American are culturally the same. An African, I know you're stuck on color, but an African is very different from your culture. A white American is very similar to your culture. And I know you don't understand this because you think that being ghetto and trashy is basically your culture. And then you don't realize that they're white Americans literally who have exactly the same culture as you. But instead you just say that they're culturally appropriating you, even though they're just simply white people who are ghetto, just like black people are ghetto. It's not a race thing, I'm just saying. And I'm really saying that part because I saw your other video on Bat Baby and you associating that type of mentality and that type of behavior with black people implies that you think basically being ghetto is being black when it isn't. That's not your culture. I mean, it is your culture, it's your subculture. But white people have that subculture just like black people do, With every subculture in America, mostly you will find black people and white people in that subculture. You might see a majority of white people or a majority of black people, I guess, question mark. I don't really know about that, period. Because usually white Americans just outnumber everyone because, the majority of people are white. But yeah, I don't think that applies because, like I said, Americans are Americans. They're not different cultures. You're thinking of people who cross subcultures. There is a difference there. But this is another thing I wanted to talk about here was if you really think that people aren't going to put too much into people of a different culture, then black people that you are describing, black men, women like me shouldn't put much into any black man for that matter, even a light-skinned black man or a mixed black man who has your mentality, because you are saying that people outside of my culture I should not put too much effort into, right? That's what you're saying. You're saying that a white man should not put too much effort into a woman outside of his culture. Well, personally, to me, the men you're describing are outside of my culture. So the black men you're describing would be men I should not put too much effort into. So that's the thing, and I'm not the only one. Obviously, there are plenty of black people who wouldn't fit the description you're talking about in the specific subculture you're talking about. So many of us should not give much effort to people like yourself because you guys are very culturally different from us. As you said, you're supposed to put in more if you're culturally different from someone. So a black man like you should put in more for black women who are culturally different than you. Of course, you don't recognize this because you assumed all black people sound the same, speak the same, eat the same food, wear the same clothing, listen to the same music. When we don't. Personally for me, I grew up listening to mainly alternative rock and hard rock, and classical music. And I generally prefer country music. That's a natural preference too. Like I always said, I learned to be more into hard rock and metalcore because of how I was raised, but country is kind of my natural preference. None of this is rap. I mean, there was some rap rock I listened to when I was a little kid, but people don't really associate that with rap. But yeah. So trying to say that people have, some kind of association just because they're black. Some black people literally, like my mother, think like rap music is like evil or something. Like they really hate it. So, I mean, like you can't make assumptions about black people when it comes to these type of preferences, or what kind of subculture a black person comes from. A lot of black people are assumed to come from the southern region, subculture of the American culture, which isn't true. Some black people do, but plenty of people like myself come from northern black families. We're not going to have the same customs as southern black families. You see, that's why you put so much into race. But in America, you really can't do that because the black and white people literally have the same culture. So, you can't put too much into, color at that point. So, yeah, you're just kind of illustrating why some people actually would do better interracially dating than specifically dating someone like who is of a different culture, even within their own race. Like someone like me would do better on a cultural sense, not even talking about my sexual lack of attraction to black men, but just on the cultural level. You talking about the people you just talked about, a black man with that type of subculture would not do too well with me. One, because he's going to try and put that on to me, and then he's going to stereotype me, and, that's not the life I live. And then secondarily, because we won't have anything in common. And then the other way, where someone is from the specific subculture I'm from, who is of another race, would actually have more in common with me. May not make the same stereotype as the other individual or the same assumptions as the other individual. So will actually get to know me for me. So you're actually being counterproductive and actually defeating your own argument. Continue.
Okay, I'm gonna just keep the ways that I'm doing and go find a white man. For most women, it's not gonna work, which is why you find them still unsuccessful in interracial relationships without changing. Now, obviously, you're gonna have black women who are feminine and come from good families. It's not gonna be a problem. But for some of the women that have the issues that he's talking about, unless you change, you're not gonna be able to have the opportunity.
No, when we talk about masculine and femininity, you have to understand not every man is masculine and not every woman is feminine. And I don't know why you guys assume, but not every woman wants a masculine man. Personally, when it comes to behavior, I'm not attracted to masculine men. I can somewhat tolerate a masculine man for sexual purposes if he can listen and he cannot be dominant in bed. If he can do those two things, I can have sex with him, but I could not develop a long-term relationship with him, because for me, I'm not attracted to masculine men. I've never been attracted to masculine men. I've always been attracted to very feminine men, and over time I've tried to erode that, because you don't want the very, very feminine man to the extent I'm saying. There's different levels of feminine. What you guys would call feminine, yes, I'm definitely attracted to that now, and I want something like that. But what I initially was attracted to was not even that. It was very extremely effeminate type of gaudy type guys. So you have to understand, not everyone starts out with their sexuality of being attracted to masculine people. You can actually be attracted to very feminine people. If there are lesbians, don't you understand there's everything in between as well? There's people who are attracted to very feminine girls, and they're a woman themselves. There are women who are attracted to very masculine men. Now, between those spectrums, there's everybody else, basically. And, there's basically someone for everyone. You can't say that just because someone is, masculine, a masculine woman, that no man wants a masculine woman. Some men want masculine women, just like some women want feminine men. A lot of you guys try and say everyone wants a masculine man. Not everyone does. Personally, I'm not really compatible with masculine men. And I think it just goes both ways with that. Anyway, continue.
And obviously, white men typically have a different style that they like as far as body type that black men don't have. So then, if you're a woman that may be a little bit on the heavier side, that also could be a problem,
Yeah, this is weird to me because it's black men, in my experience, have always been claim they are into thick, fatter women. But in my experience, I'm a skinny girl. I'm not thick. I don't have any big parts like that down below. I just have big boobs, but I'm skinny elsewhere. And honestly, through clothing, you wouldn't even really recognize that I am very big chested. You would have to recognize that when I'm not dressed. I look very small and petite. And I've always had black men who were very much interested in me. So, to me, I don't really think that black men do have that preference towards fat women. I think they just say that, And also, I've seen white men who were attracted to very thick, fat women who had like big butts and all that stuff. So to me, I just find it weird that people like this would try and say like that. Black men like fat women and white men like skinny women or whatever. That's just like so stereotypical. Like, people are individuals, sweetie.
Could be problematic depending on who you are. So, guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again.
I feel like this whole video was really based off of a lot of stereotypes. So you can't really talk about the truth here because he just came up with a lot of stereotypes and went running with it like it was true. That's basically all I have to say on that. It's just like, it's factually untrue. And if you deal with the actual reality of it, race wouldn't matter. As much as he's saying, at least. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye.